Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Week 7 installment for uh, English essays. In this video lecture and in the accompanying notes, I would like to discuss our kind of last concept or skill and do our last exercises before the midterm. This week, I hope to tie everything together in one last step before the midterm and talk about organization. All right. So organization here is going to be important to us in two ways. All right, two things to consider. One, when we consider the writing process. All right, if you don't know the writing process, there are different steps to accomplishing an essay, right? Or any writing really, but we're talking about essays. You might have different names for them depending on who you talk to, but basically the writing process is step one: brainstorm, generate, gather or collect as much good information as you can about a topic that has been given you or you have selected. Step two would be to take all of that information and look at it closely, think about it, consider it, and organize it into a way that kind of makes sense. It's coherent and logical, and you figure out how to say what you want to say in the best way possible. Okay, that is organization. That's what I want to talk about today. All right, and to continue in the writing process, after organization comes the rough draft writing, maybe the most difficult part. After rough draft writing comes the editing part, where you can share it with your classmates or an editor or a teacher maybe, and try to improve the writing. And you can also do self-editing, where you look at your writing and you try to improve it. Maybe you take the opinions from your classmates or your teacher or your editor and try to consider how to improve the writing, the essay. And then, of course, the last step in the writing process is to publish it, to submit it, to hand it in. All right, that is the final step. All right, so in understanding the writing process, it's really helpful to to understand organization from that aspect, but also maybe better in terms of your overall development as an essay writer. Here, it's important to understand how essays are organized. Okay, when you read an effective essay, if it reads well and presents its information well, that should not be accomplished by accident. It's because somebody has sat down and thought about how to best present the information that they have in the form of an essay to the reader. So just general effective organization is the second thing, kind of the universal concept I want us to consider about writing this week. All right, so you have the notes. Of course, you have the directions to follow, the short note on organization with some explanation. And then, of course, you also have a sample essay. All right, this is an essay that somebody has written, a 5-paragraph essay that we will use to complete our exercise. And of course, our exercise this week includes this, which is an essay outline. All right. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. That's important to us, not only in understanding organization, but it'll be important to writing our first essay, our second essay, any essay you ever write. And then, of course, the last page of the notes is kind of the answer. All right, the answer for our exercise. So this is your kind of exercise answer sheet for this week. And this is your possible solutions. So this should go on this, all right? But you can check this after you do this. Okay, so again, let's try to put everything we've studied together in this, our last lecture before the midterm. All right, think of this exercise today because we are looking at a complete essay here. Let's look at it a way to test our knowledge. What do you know? How well do you know it? Okay, when it comes to using appropriate language, when it comes to understanding the definition and structure of an essay, when it comes to writing a strong, clear thesis statement, when it comes to understanding unity, development, coherence, when it comes down to understanding sentence cohesion and creating further cohesiveness. You can see that in this essay. And also, like we talked about last week, when using appeals, maybe we can see how appeals are used in this sample essay as well. So keep that in mind. This is our last week before the midterm. So not only do we want to focus on organization, we want to bring together all of the skills and concepts that we have studied from week 1 to week 6 and this week. All right. Try to test your knowledge, review your knowledge about how well you understand those skills and concepts in today's exercise as well. All right, but as I mentioned, we're gonna talk about organization, and we need to consider kind of that in 2 ways. All right, one, just as a step in the writing process, the second step in the writing process, and 2, how organization is helpful and effective in creating excellent, well-written essays. All right, so if you look at the first page of the notes and the explanations here, you'll see organization and essay outlines. So let's just talk a little bit about organization in the writing process here, as I mentioned, and then I'll talk a little bit more about specifically what an essay outline is. All right, so after the midterm, in week 9, in the second half of the semester, we are going to be writing first our term essay, our longer essay, which will take us probably about 6 weeks to finish. And we are going to follow the writing process. And so far in this course, every week I have reminded you, please begin thinking about a topic for your term essay and doing some reading and doing some research and hopefully even coming up with a working thesis, all right? Maybe your first attempt at a main idea of what you want to say about your topic for your academic persuasive essay, all right? So hopefully you've been doing a bit of step 1 now, all right? But again, in the writing process, after you have collected enough good, if not great information, or generated that information, the next step is to think about how you can put that information together into a way that expresses your one clear main idea, your thesis. Preferably a strong one. but at this stage, it doesn't have to be. And you can expect your thesis might change. All right. And of course, we're going to have to develop and support that thesis with all of our evidence and understanding and knowledge. So a careful writer will consider what his or her best evidence is. So you might have a lot of information, and when you're organizing, maybe you want to cut it down. It's like, this is interesting, but maybe it doesn't connect with this information based on my thesis. Right? It doesn't do a good job in effectively developing it. Or it's maybe something for another topic. All right. So when you're organizing, you're really thinking about all the information that you've gathered or generated. Okay. So how do we do that? Look at ways to see how the ideas, the information is logically connected, coherently. All right. And think about also how you can use language to verbalize those connections or represent your ideas appropriately. All right. So again, think about logical bridges, think about verbal bridges, think about your main idea, think about your supporting ideas. How is it all connected in a way that kind of develops that clear, unified, coherent, developed message that is your thesis and your overall essay. All right. In essence, we want to kind of create some kind of hierarchy. Your main idea, the thesis, your broader supporting ideas, and then the little details that support those ideas, which support the main idea, the thesis. All right. We want to try and construct that roughly in our mind. Okay, that is what organization is really, right? That's what we're trying to accomplish, creating that kind of understandable logical hierarchy which uses the appropriate and clear language to represent our ideas. All right, now I've mentioned to you a little bit about this before when we talked about structure. All right, if we do have in our, let's say, I'm going to use the concept of a 5-paragraph essay. We have first paragraph, introduction, right? The purpose there, introduce the topic, and then give necessary background or context, and then narrow the broad subject to a more specific, clear assertion that is our thesis statement. And in that thesis statement, we can also introduce the main ideas of the body. So first paragraph, introduction. Introduce your topic, give necessary information, provide a clear thesis. Then we move to the body. In a 5-paragraph essay, we have 3 body paragraphs. Okay? So that means each of these body paragraphs has their main point A or main point 1, 2, 3. And then each of these main points has their development. Okay? Here's a quote. Here's a statistic. Here's a fact. Here's an example. Here's an explanation, a logical explanation. Okay? And these things develop the main idea for that body paragraph. And that main idea supports the overall thesis. So we're going to do that not once, not twice, but 3 times. So these 3 main ideas all have their supporting details, examples, explanations, quotes, and statistics. And those all support the main ideas, which all support the thesis. Okay? So when you think about how to organize the body, right? I remember I was telling you, you can do it chronologically. You can do it, in the past, now, in the future, right? Or first, second, finally, all right? That is chronological by time. However, not all of our topics and our bodies can be presented in that way. It's not possible because it might be abstract information. So we have to think about another way to organize. How do we organize? How do we present this information? As I stated earlier, when we talked about structure, the way I was taught and the way I teach, you want to consider the strength of argument. Okay, of these 3 points, which one is your strongest, which one is your weakest, but still strong, just weaker than the other 2, and then of course which one's in the middle. All right, and the way I discussed before, in the most effective way I think, is to take your middle argument, your second strongest, and put that first. Okay, so start with number 2, then in the middle put your weakest argument, and then of course at the end of the body, the last body paragraph, you will put your strongest, most convincing argument that supports your thesis. All right, so 2, 3, 1. That kind of organization is possible for strength of argument. Now, you can use chronology, you can use strength of argument, or you can use any way that you want. Okay? The organization all comes from what you think or what you want or how you want to organize your essay. It's your choice as a writer. Okay? But no matter what you do, chronology, strength of argument, or something else, if you want to be a good writer, you want to develop your writing abilities for essays, just remember that the body should be organized in the way that best supports your thesis, because the thesis, is the whole reason for writing this essay. All right, now that can be subjective. All right, you might have a different idea than I do, and that's something to maybe talk about when you're doing some editing. But at this point in the writing process, before you write the rough draft, you should already be considering the most effective way to organize your essay. All right? So, in the writing process, when we have done step 1 and gathered as much good information as we can, and then we organize it by thinking about it and maybe making notes or scratching out notes. But at the end of the organizing stage, the end of step 2, before we ever write our essay, before we ever write a rough draft, what I want you to do, and no matter how much time you have, no matter what kind of essay you're writing, you should always write an essay outline. Okay? An essay outline, just as a definition, all right, you can see here, this is one example of an essay outline. It is a graphic organizer. Okay? That means a way of organizing information that you can visually see, graphically see, okay, to represent something. It takes all of your ideas and organizes them so that you can see it simply, briefly, concisely on that page, one page, hopefully. All right? And what it does is it represents the basic structure and logic of the essay. All right, if you want a metaphor here, think about the human body. What we're looking at here is not all the wonderful details. You're not looking at this stylish shirt or this, nicely groomed hair or these beautiful eyes. You're not getting that amount of detail. Sorry. You're looking at the bones, the basic structure, the frame, the build. Right? This is the head. These are the shoulders. These are your arm bones. This is your legs. Just how it is structured, how it stands. All right? That's what you're looking at, basically, if you need a metaphor, for what an essay outline is. All right, as I said, no matter what kind of essay you're writing, And no matter how much time you have to write an essay, whether it's a term essay or a test essay, right? If you have a term essay, you can spend a day or a week making an essay outline. If you're writing a test essay, you can spend 3 minutes writing an essay outline. But no matter what or how or whatever situation you have, you find yourself in when writing an essay, I always, always, always recommend that you make an essay outline. So that means there are various forms of essay outlines. Some of them are very simple, right? You might just take a pen and a piece of paper and roughly write down in 3 minutes all of your ideas with a thesis, with the main idea, with supporting ideas, just a rough sketch, right? Or if you go into some of the Word softwares, the word processing softwares like Microsoft Word or Hangul, you might find actually just templates, all right, for outlines, essay outlines here. And then it can be more formal, right? Some instructors and professors, like this guy, actually requires students to make more formal essay outlines. So that's what we have here. It's slightly more formal than just a quick note-taking essay outline. Okay, but there are various kinds of essay outlines, and this one is somewhat more formal. But as I said, just to review, it is a graphic organizer that shows you the basic structure and logic of an essay, right? How does it do that? It does it visually. So what we have here as a graphic organizer, we can see the top, and the top is the most important. So right here, you can see I've written thesis. So in this box, you're just going to write your thesis, or you're going to write your working thesis. It might change after writing an essay, but it might not. And then below that, okay, in terms of logical importance, you get here main point. So this is main point number 1, main point number 2, main point number 3. All right, remember 5-paragraph essay. Okay, this is going to be body paragraph number 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3. All right, and the main point is going to be your topic sentence, basically. For each of the 3 body paragraphs, you're going to have your main point, main point, main point. But for each of your paragraphs, remember, you need to develop your paragraph. So here you see A, B, C. That's going to be, an example, a fact, an explanation, a quote, a statistic, something that really explains or develops the main point for this first paragraph, first body paragraph. All right, and of course, this main point supports your thesis statement. So this here, right, the supporting details or supporting ideas support the main idea of the paragraph, and that main idea of the paragraph supports the thesis. All right, and then of course you have body paragraph number 2, again, your topic sentence, your main idea for that paragraph, and its supporting ideas, facts, statistics, quotes, explanations, examples. Okay, these all support this idea, which supports, again, your thesis. And then the same thing here for paragraph 3, main idea for paragraph 3, supporting ideas which support this main idea, and this main idea which supports the thesis. So if you want to think about it, it's kind of like a triangle, all right, or a pyramid, if you will. Thesis, most important idea, the main idea of the essay. Everything in your essay should only be included if it is working to help support and develop the main idea, which is the thesis. Then you have the lesser, right? Body paragraph 1, main idea. Body paragraph 2, main idea. Body paragraph 3, main idea. So we're coming down. So these are all kind of on the same level. all right, of importance, and their jobs are to develop the thesis. But below them are these supporting ideas, all right? So we get thesis, body point 1. And then for body point 1, we get supporting idea, supporting idea, supporting idea. And if we move over here, body point 2, okay? Supporting idea, supporting idea, supporting idea. And if we move over here, body point 3, main idea, supporting idea, supporting idea, supporting idea. So it's this big pyramid, okay, from the more general to the more specific. But everything below is supporting the thing on top. So the supporting ideas support the main ideas. The main ideas support the thesis, which is the overall main idea of the essay, the most important thing. All right, so if we do that on this page, briefly, okay, we want this to be simple and brief. So you can do point form or just, straightforward, short, simple sentences, or as simple as they need to be, because we're not trying to write the essay on this page. We're just trying to show the ideas, the logic and structure of the ideas on this page. That's the purpose, to visually see it easily, clearly. All right? It's a sketch. It's a roadmap. It's a plan, so that we can kind of judge just how good our argument is. Do we have a clear thesis? Is it strong? Does it assert something? Do you have main ideas which are logically connected? All right? And do we have enough good information to support those ideas which support the thesis? That's what we're trying to judge before we ever write a rough draft. It saves us time, it saves us stress, and usually it results in better essays, more effectively written essays. So that's what an essay outline is and how it should work. Okay? All right. So when you've completed an essay outline, how can we use an essay outline? Well, let me talk about three points to consider. Okay, 3 ways to look at an essay outline. All right. When you complete this, before you ever write a rough draft, we want to look at what we have considered in our minds as an argument. All right. Number 1, consider the logic of the thesis and the main supporting points. Do the ideas connect clearly? Okay, is there a logical connection there? All right, in terms of coherency. But also consider the language of your ideas. Is there a verbal bridge there, a verbal connection? Are you saying it clearly and appropriately? All right, are you using clear, specific language? All right, so just basically consider that. All right, now you might think, well, of course it's going to be that way, right? That's kind of what we're looking for here, because sometimes we have so much information. If you've done so much reading and research and you've made so many notes and things, sometimes it can be very confusing. Just keep it in our mind, put it onto a simple 1-page paper, and it's easier to focus your attention on the logic and the language here. All right, that's why it's helpful. Number 2, we can also consider the depth of the evidence. All right, so consider about adequate development. When we already discussed that, we talked about the quantity of ideas. Do you have too much information? Do you have too little information, not enough information? All right. For example, all right, when you look here, maybe you have only just one supporting idea, two supporting ideas. You might think, depending on how big your essay is or how small your essay is going to be, or how long or how short it is that enough information to adequately develop it? You can see that easily if you make an essay outline, all right? Or you can have, 8 points here, 7 points here, 10 points here. That might be overwhelming, okay? So in that case, you might have too much information for this size essay or the scope of your essay, whatever the size of it is. So consider just how much information you have, right? Too much or too little. All right. But also you can consider the quality of the information, right? Again, you're looking for the logic here. But if you write it quite simply here, you can just see, think about it. It is much easier to think about it clearly when it's presented in a simple way, right? So hopefully your mind can read it, see it, and consider it more effectively. But another little thing to note too is you can also consider the scope. All right, and scope, I mean kind of the boundaries and the limits, right? Are you moving from general to specific? And in looking at scope, you can also identify unity, right? Does everything fit in the scope, or is this idea over here and outside of the scope, right? If it's over here, we might need to get rid of that idea or change the idea or change the language that we use to make it understandable in the scope of what we want to say, in the limitations, the boundaries of what we want to say. All right? Okay, and number 3, a very important thing to look for, a little bit similar to the depth of evidence, but specifically, are there any gaps in your information, or are there any overlaps in your information? All right, so if there are gaps in your ideas, it means you might be missing information. You don't have a full, adequately developed argument. You need more information, okay? Or you need to explain it better, all right? In that case, maybe you need to go back to step 1 and do more reading, more research, all right, and fill in those gaps. Otherwise, the reader might say, the idea is interesting and I believe it, but I don't have enough evidence to believe it. So you might need to fill in that gap by giving more evidence. Also, kind of a separate but similar kind of problem is an overlap problem. All right, this happens to many people, myself included, because sometimes we get confused when we're using the language or just considering our ideas and the different categories of ideas based on our perspectives. All right, sometimes you might think you have 2 separate ideas, definitively separate ideas, but they're not. You've just somehow, maybe by using language, shown them to be separate. Maybe you're using synonyms to describe this and describe this, but essentially they're the same thing. You might have an overlap in knowledge, in information. Okay, it could be a real overlap in that you really are just using different words to describe the same thing. Or hopefully it's not that problem. Maybe you just need to use better language, clearer language to differentiate, to show the difference that yes, indeed, this idea is separate from this idea in your argument. All right? And by looking and creating an essay outline, that is easier to see. It's simple. It's 1 page, and we don't have to consider all the information in our mind. We can look at it and kind of ask ourselves these kind of basic questions. And if we take the time to write an essay outline and look at it and consider it and maybe even share it with other people, we can really help to improve the overall organization of our essay. All right. And that will make for a more effective essay as well. Okay. And just understanding this by practicing it, by taking the time to follow the writing process and investigate and analyze organization, we can not only have better results, but we can develop our skills and understanding as writers. And that skill becomes easier the more we do it as well. All right, so that's really helpful. All right, and then again, when you are following the writing process and you've now finished step 2, which is organization, what you have in an essay outline is a roadmap. So step 3, when you begin writing a rough draft, which is usually the most stressful time, the most difficult time, we have a plan. All right. Think about like if you want to take a road trip, drive somewhere. Think about how much more stressful it would be if you didn't have a map or if you didn't have GPS. These days, everybody relies on GPS. I'm old enough to remember times before that where either you just read the road signs or maybe you had an actual like a road map and you wrote down where to go. All right, that was helpful. But if you don't have that map, driving can be stressful. You don't know where you're going, and when you don't know where you're going, you get stress. And when you have stress, you cannot think clearly. You might get into an accident if you're driving. Okay, that's very common. Well, consider that when you're writing an essay. If you don't know where you're going because you don't have a map, you might get into an accident. And your essay might look like a crashed car. Okay, it might read like a crashed car. So avoid the stress and avoid crashing your essay by preparing an essay outline. No matter what kind of essay you're writing, whether it's a long, slowly written, processed term essay, or if it's a very pressurized, short time for a test essay, always make an essay outline, whether it's a more formal one or if it's one that you're just scratching out in 2 minutes on the back of a piece of paper. Either way, they will be helpful and hopefully provide you with a better experience and a better result for your essays. All right, and that moves us to this week's exercise. All right. Just to review, remember in this exercise, we're looking at a real essay. Okay, somebody, a really good writer, has written this essay. It's an effective essay, so it's a sample essay. This is something that I would like you to be able to do in writing essays. This is effective. So you can look at it as a sample. And when you are reading this essay for today's exercise, I also want you to remember week 1, okay, the use of appropriate language. Week 2, structure and definition of essays. And week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6. Okay, theses, essential elements of writing, unity, development, coherence, conciseness, and cohesion, sentence cohesion for coherency. Consider appeals as well. All of these different skills and concepts are being used, can be found as examples in this essay. So, on top of doing today's exercise, I want you, as a review, to test your knowledge before the midterm of everything we studied and see how those skills and concepts also apply to this essay. But for this week, what I want you to do, specifically in this exercise, is use this sample essay as your kind of answer sheet for an exercise. So read this essay. It's called The Efficacy of Assignment Essays in Education. Okay, this is an example of an academic persuasive essay. And I want you to read it once, twice, 3 times, 100 times, as many times as you can or you want. And I want you to work backwards, okay? This is a little bit awkward for what I've just described for an essay outline, but as an exercise, as a student here, to better understand essay organization and to better understand how to fill out or create an essay outline, I want us to work backwards, okay? We are going to reverse engineer this essay, right? As I said in the writing process, step 1, gather or collect information, generate information. Step 2, what we're talking about today, organization. Step 3, write the essay. Step 4, edit the essay. Step 5, publish or hand in the essay. We're working backwards just as an exercise. So the essay has already been written. But what I want you to do after reading it is to consider, what would an essay outline look like for this particular essay? So read this essay. All right, it's 5 paragraphs. What is the thesis? Okay, and then on this sheet for this essay, write in briefly. Okay, you can make it short form or just a short sentence. You can simplify if you want. What is the thesis for this essay? Write it here. Then look at the different sections of the body. Okay, body 1, body 2, body 3. This is a 5-paragraph essay. What is the main point for number 1? What is the main point for body paragraph 2? What is the main point for body paragraph 3? Also, what are the supporting ideas for body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3? So look in this essay. What are the examples or the explanations or just the development here? Okay, you have ABC, 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 but it's not necessary that it's 3, 3, 3. Okay, if there's only 2, you think, just put in 2. If there's 4, put in 4. You do your best to judge what the supporting ideas for each body section is. Okay, and then that should kind of provide you with an essay outline for this particular essay, The Efficacy of Assignment Essays in Education. So that, as an exercise, is going to force you to understand how this essay has been organized by another writer. And you are going to have to do that exercise here for this essay, right? So it'll also give you a better understanding of how to fill out an essay outline, which you will also do later for your term essay in week 9 after the midterm. All right, as always, this is just an exercise. You do not need to submit it. I just want you to better understand the skill or concept and test yourself with it. All right, so at the end of your notes, the last page, I have also included answers. Okay, so this is what the essay outline is for this essay, right? This is what I'm asking you to do. So once you do your best to complete it, I want you to look at your example, essay outline and compare it to this one. How close does it match? Did you understand it well? Did you do a good job? Does your essay outline read very similarly, if not the same as this one? Because this one is kind of the effective or appropriate essay outline for this essay. All right, so that's it for this week. Remember, the midterm's coming soon, and in the midterm, all of the questions are going to ask you to demonstrate your knowledge on everything we studied in week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the questions are all going to be similar, if not the same, to the questions or the exercises that I have included in each week's lesson. All right? So not only is the information there obviously the same, and that's what you need to demonstrate, but I've tried to make the questions very similar. So hopefully don't have much difficulty in understanding how to answer the questions that you will see on the midterm. All right, I hope that's clear to you. If it isn't, or if you have any other questions or concerns, please don't be shy about contacting me in the Kakao chat room, or as always via email, via email as well, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.